Good morning, Gene. How are you?
Hello, good afternoon. How are you, Ehssan?
I'm fine, thank you. It's Thanks for joining us again. We have Mr. Gene Binder, author of Global Project Management, which is a textbook we're using at the University of Sydney for the Global Project Management subject. Thanks for joining us, Gene, again for our second interview.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So basically, we have two more questions left by two of our students. So we can go through that if that's fine with you, and then we can just talk about anything else that you'd like to share with us. Would that be fine with you?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jean. So we have a question by Yuan Pablo, which says, in the real life experience on page 41 of your book, what was the main difference between the first email sent by the project manager and the email he sent for the second project phase? And was it more summarized?
Yes, in fact, what I wanted to illustrate with this case is that in the first occasion, the project manager was trying to send one email to everyone with all details inside the email. So it was a very long email.
Mhm.
And more, I know people that just by opening a very long email already, if you're using an iPhone, it's very hard to read all this. So people close and leave it to later, and later may never come because
Yeah,
they're too busy, right?
that's right.
So I think one of the key lessons from that case is to grab the audience by being a very, let's say, write a very sharp message, a very clear subject line, a very sharp message in the email, very short and focused message in the email,
Mhm.
and then you add links or attachments depending on how we work, where people can find more information to deal with.
Mhm.
And the goal of that in terms of global projects is that people who prefer to focus on the summary and are able to make decisions on the summary, they already read the two paragraphs, reply I agree or I approve, and that's done for them. They don't need more. And people who really need all the details in order to make decisions, because of cultural reasons or because of their local perspective, that they need to understand fully the situation before giving approval, then they have the links to read more, to have all the plans or diagrams and everything that can help them to make the decision.
Mhm. Fantastic. And one other thing is I came across a concept of data versus dialogue cultures, and it basically categorizes cultures into two primary categories: data, which is basically countries where or cultures where they prefer emails, discussions, facts, and figures, which include countries such as Germany, United States, and there are also dialogue-oriented cultures which prefer, making a phone call and discussing it over the phone rather than, having a long email.
Hmm.
So some of these cultures include Mexico and France. So do you think that also has an impact on whether there's a quick reply to emails, or whether the nature of the email, and whether people, basically some project managers from, say, data oriented cultures prefer writing long emails, precisely stating what needs to be done, whereas some of the project managers from dialogue-oriented cultures, such as France, for instance, they prefer just making a phone call and talking for about 20 minutes, half an hour, informally regarding that project. Would that also affect the nature of how the communication takes place?
Yes, I think that's exactly what I wanted to illustrate with the case. I was not aware of this, let's say, this segregation of culture into two factors, but probably it has some true on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the trick is that for project managers, when you use the illustration that project managers who are from data culture, they may write emails with more information, so on. I think the trick is, if you want to be a good global project manager, you need to be more flexible than that, and you need to already know that other people may not read all the description
Mm-hmm.
and prefer a phone call instead. And I think the trick of sending a summary information in the mail with links to the data, let's say,
Yeah.
information for the data people, and also opening up in the email, like, please call me if you need more details, or let me know if I can call you to discuss in more details. Or even if you know the person may already call the person up front to discuss this, if you know that they prefer to talk over the phone. That's exactly what I wanted to illustrate. You should uh, be more flexible and understand other people's perspective if you want to have quick decisions and people, stakeholders engagement into the project.
Exactly. And also, I'd like to just point out what you mentioned earlier is a lot of times we do check emails on our iPhone. Like
Mhm.
we're traveling and we just quickly look, and because we open the email, it obviously it shows as read. So sometimes when you go back in the office, we we forget that we have actually not responded to that email, and then a
Yes.
few days later, there's another email. What happened? Why you haven't responded to my previous email? So it's like that's kind of what happens. Yeah, it's a variety of different factors. Some of them could be cultural. Some of them could be it's because of just our new lifestyle. It's just we're on the move and we're checking email, and sometimes these things happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, thanks for that. And so now we move on to the next question by Michael Tracy. So Michael is saying China is Australia's trading partner, and Australia is China's fifth largest trading partner. And as China is moving toward an economy more focused on service-based delivery, what more can we as Australian students of global project management do to better prepare for the future?
Okay, I think that has probably many different perspectives in terms of the answer. And if you're talking about service management, you probably should look into ITU certification and this type of things in terms of the theory, right?
Mm.
And I'm very curious in terms of what is going to happen in terms of the because service minded or service mindedness, right? It varies across cultures. So
Yes.
I know some cultures that I think their notion of service or good service is completely different than other cultures talk about service. So, for
Exactly.
example, when I go back to Brazil and then I go to a shop just to see a bit the clothes, people come and they constantly ask you if you need help, if you need help, right? All the time they come if you need help, and I think I already more in the European culture where you just go and walk around and the only thing people say is good morning, I'm here if you need me, and that's all, right? They don't follow you over the shop.
That's right.
And for Brazilians coming to Europe, they think people are not service minded because they're not following you through the shop, and the opposite happens when you go there. You think they're kind of harassing you because they're following you everywhere. And I think it's a kind of funny story to illustrate that it happens also in projects, in global projects, where people, if you have a problem in your computer, what do you want? Do you want someone to come to your desk and help you out solving the problem? Or do you prefer a more cold contact, which is just someone telling you by email what you should do? Or even what I have seen is people just connect to your computer and install things or resolve things, and you don't even know they're around, right? You don't know them.
Mm.
So basically, I think the perspective is that I can imagine that Australian and Chinese cultures are very different, and coming to service it to be very different. So I think it would be very interesting to understand what Chinese people consider a good service,
Mm.
what Australian people consider as good service, not only about IT, but probably other types of services. And after this investigation, try to be ready to cope with both. So if you have someone from China providing you a service in a project and someone from Australia providing you a service, probably you're not going to have the same type of service, not because they are better than the other, but just because they have different perspectives on what is good service. So you need to be ready to understand them, and then you may need to be ready to explain that to your users so that they don't feel that they are having bad service just because it's a different type of approach.
Mm.
Just try to say that both approaches are probably valid, right? And
Exactly.
in the other hand, try to give some cultural training as such to the people providing this service so that they know what is expected from them, so that they can provide a better service. So that's what would come first to my mind.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, it is different. Every culture has a different way of looking at service. Like I lived in Japan for a number of years, and in Japan, service is so important, and customer is always number one. And they have they call customer almost like God. They have a saying "okyakusama," and it's really amazing the amount of amazing service that they provide. Whether you go to a shop, they first greet you, and then they come and just whatever you say, and they're always like with a smile, and there's never a point where they could get frustrated or impatient with the
Mm-hmm.
customer. I've never came across such a situation in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is true, and I think also uh, personality might also play a role here, because I also used to work back in early university. I worked in customer service, and we were told, this, it was a department store which had 5-star, so-called 5-star customer service, and we were told that when the customer comes in, you go and say, can I help you? What can I help you with? And
Mm-hmm.
some customers really appreciated that, whereas some others were like, I just came to have a look, just leave me alone, let me.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of a combination of, I think, culture as well as individual personality of the customers. So it's a very complex topic, I guess it is. But
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's pretty much the two questions from the students. Is there anything else, Jean, would you'd like to share with us regarding some of the cultural or any other topics of importance that students can kind of use when they're working in global teams and virtual teams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you just said is very important. Is that people traditionally, researchers and even business writers, they try to put people into squares or types
Mm,
and boxes, right?
definitely.
And it's easier for them if they have only 5 or 7 boxes to classify people using that. And also it's easier if people just say, for example, Brazilian culture is like this, or an Italian culture is like that, and
Mm,
this type of
mm,
things. But in reality, what happens is much more complex than that, because we are all human beings. So
exactly, exactly.
probably there are more boxes than human beings in the world, and it'd be very hard to really develop a model to classify all of them.
Mm, mm,
And so just to come back to your point, I think personality is extremely important.
mm,
That's why every time I talk about cross-cultural management, I think I tell people to use matrix, for example, Hofstede and Tropenhaar's cultural models, just as one example, an illustration of the differences.
mm,
But the way for you to really manage a cross-cultural team or project is to be ready for differences.
mhm,
If they come from personalities or cultures, you need to be
mhm,
ready for differences.
mm,
And it's much more likely that you're going to have differences in a global project than a local project.
mm.
And then you need to be open to deal with them. You need to be flexible to deal with them. That's the key learning,
Exactly.
I think. And the second thing is that the framework I put forward in the website and in the book is a starting point.
Mm,
Again, there are some boxes because we are forced to use some
mm,
boxes to
mm.
categorize
Just to simplify.
principles and people. Sorry?
Just so that we can simplify the complexity.
Yes, we try to simplify so that you can understand it, right? I
Mm,
think that's the goal of models and frameworks.
sure.
And so basically, the framework I put forward was a starting point based on a lot of research and reading like books and papers are trying to see what was the most comprehensive body of knowledge
Mm,
on the topic. And I created some categories to simplify again the understanding.
mm,
And what I would appreciate from your students or other people who are watching this now is to come back to the website or to
mm,
the LinkedIn group,
mhm,
Global Project Management, and bring ideas how to expand the framework.
mhm.
What did I miss in the framework? What is really important that is not written there? Because then we're going to expand the body of knowledge with a discussion on the web that can retrofit in a possible next version of the framework. And
Sure, sure. Yes, and I will be actually asking the students to join the global project management group, because I think it's very very important for them to get exposed to other experts in the field, and be able to share their knowledge and ask questions and get feedback. So I do appreciate that, Gene. And so I think there is another question by Michael, which he has. posted onto the global project management. He said it hasn't appeared yet, so I think it will appear maybe after 1 or 2 days. Um,
No, I think it was approved yesterday evening. So it's a very interesting question about insourcing that
oh, I
I
see.
need to think a bit more about how to answer that. But
Oh,
it's a
fantastic.
very
So
good question. Yeah.
we're looking forward to that, Dean. And the other thing I was going to ask you is about motivation, which was really interesting because in your book you also mentioned a little bit about what mainly people are different cultures are motivated by, whether it's power or whether it's recognition or being part of a team or
Hmm.
and it's really interesting because I've been looking at the psychology of motivation for a few years now, and I came across a concept, a theory called self-determination theory, which came about around 1970s in by Richard Ryan and Edward Deci of Rochester University, and basically they're saying, okay, every human being, regardless of whatever culture they are or wherever they are, mainly they need three basic psychological needs in order to perform at their best and be intrinsically motivated, and these were just autonomy, like everyone kind of requires to have control over their own lives, so they most people don't want to be told what to do unless they ask for it. So that's the autonomy. It's just saying you give the employee or your team member or anyone, whether they're in your local team or global team, the autonomy that they require to be able to ask assistance if they need, or um, or just do it by themselves, so they don't need to be micromanaged. And the
Hmm.
second factor is competency. All individuals want to feel that they're competent in their environment, in their team, that they're contributing, that what they're doing is significant, um, and uh, and so that's the second one. And the third one would be relatedness. So everyone requires to be able to connect with the other team members, have meaningful relationships, and be able to connect with others in the team and in the organization. So these are kind of these three factors, and every individual basically requires certain degrees of these three. So some require more autonomy, some require less autonomy, but more competency. So, but it's really interesting because it's saying, regardless of what culture you have and regardless of where you are, if these three psychological needs are provided to your individuals, then they're motivated and they perform really well. So I thought, it's really like motivation is one of the very interesting topics that I try to explore, and that's in the field of psychology. So, but yeah, so what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's kind of pervasive and is common across what what you have seen over the years in different cultures in Brazil and in Europe and anywhere else?
Yeah, at first thought, because I didn't hear about this specific theory before, but at first it looks very interesting and also related to other motivational theories you have on the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what brings me is that I think these principles look very similar to some of the agile principles as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the current kind of research topics I'm very interested into is how to mix agile principles into waterfall processes from project management and try to see if you can find a balanced agile and waterfall model. So there is already some research on that, and I think there is still field to explore on this area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they use exactly this type of principles, while the original waterfall processes or models were more into controlling people so that they do what you want and telling them where you want them to go.
Mm-hmm.
Agile is more in the principle that people should be self-motivated
Mm-hmm.
and should feel some achievement in what they're doing, and therefore you don't need so much control because they're going to be motivated enough to do the tasks.
Exactly. Mm.
And I think you can easily combine, or not easily perhaps, but you can combine both, let's say, the agile principles of motivation and the waterfall for a more structured approach of planning and budgeting and closing the project. I think the combination of both is a very rich is a very rich combination for projects, and that's something I'm very curious to see the evolution of that in the next years. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And another interesting book that is on motivation is called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he kind of summarizes, what motivates people. Because traditionally we think that everyone is motivated by money and by fame and fortune and things like that, but it talks about there are intrinsic needs that for people to want to learn and grow and contribute, and having
Hmm.
like purpose in your work and having meaning in what you do. That's like a lot more powerful often than extrinsic motivators, such as getting more pay or rewards
Hmm.
and punishments and things like that. So it's a very interesting area that is definitely worth looking into to be able to more effectively lead teams, whether they're global or local.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
Recently, I saw a sentence which was, "Find a job that you like, and you never need to work again," or something in this
exactly,
case, which
exactly,
summarized what you said. Yeah.
exactly. Going back to that, if you love your job, it's no longer a job. It's you see it as a part of your life, and that's, I
Mm.
think, it's really important. I think if you're going to spend 8-9 hours at work and you're not enjoying it, then it's more than half of your life going to
Hmm.
waste. So, but yeah, and thank you so much, Gene. And if there's anything else you'd like to share with us, this will be um, our, I guess, last chance for students to kind of hear your words of wisdom.
No, I think we can keep talking using the group or even email, and I would welcome the possibility of having this repeating every year or every session we have with students every semester or year. We can
That would be
have the
wonderful.
same approach, which is people asking questions and we discussing together. I think it's a very because when I wrote the book, my main motivation was exchanging knowledge and ideas, and
Mm.
that's one of the best ways to do it.
Exactly. Thank you, Gene. And because I mean, it's really great, and it's been a great privilege for me to be able to interview you and provide that to students, because this course, that the global project management, this semester, is an online subject, so there is actually no face to face
Oh,
uh, lectures. So that's why I thought it would be nice to actually be able to provide students with some videos so that they can actually see some faces, and it would be a lot more interesting than for them to just read texts and articles and things like that. So it's
okay.
been it's been very great, and I'm very grateful, Gene, that you gave us your time and provided us with so much of your feedback. And the students will be in touch, and they will be posting their questions on the LinkedIn Global Project Management group, and we very much look forward to hearing more from you.
Okay. Thanks. The pleasure was mine.
Thank you, Gene. So you have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.